Yzaguirre.
So as you heard, my name is Raul Yzaguirre, and I'm here to represent my father and convey his thoughts and gratitude to you all tonight. As I begin, I want to acknowledge this incredible group of speakers that has come before me tonight. It's truly an amazing collection of public, private, and nonprofit leaders, and my dad is honored that you've come here to share and celebrate the honor of his Medal of Freedom. But I want to especially acknowledge the person who's helped kick tonight off. Janet, thank you beyond words for seizing the reins, maintaining the fight, and forging ahead with new initiatives for our community the past 18 years. Your vision and the way that you continue to lead this great organization well into the 21st century is something that gives my father great joy. And that gratitude extends to everyone in the audience as well. The Medal of Freedom, while on its surface is a significant individual award, would not be possible without the countless members of our community, past and present, who have tirelessly worked to make our country stronger by making it more representative. And those of you here tonight who are in positions of influence recognize the long journey and list of heroes, both sung and unsung, who have helped to make achievements like the Medal of Freedom a reality. For my father, he would not be who he is without the love, guidance, and strong will of individuals like his grandfather or Dr. Hector Garcia, who taught him the values of hard work, community, working within institutions, and generally not taking a no for an answer. But beyond all, if Dad were up here tonight, he would give thanks to my mother, as you already heard previously, for her unwavering support and encouragement throughout his career. The demands of my father's role were often quite time-consuming. The demands of my father's role were often quite time-consuming, quite stressful, sometimes financially lean. But through it all, Mom was the rock that held our family together. She raised 6, hear that, 6 kids, mostly good, sometimes challenging. But she always mirrored Dad's vision of helping others by taking in countless relatives, friends, passerbys, or whoever needed help. Mom, we love you. And let me close out my remarks tonight with a request. As you've heard from others tonight, sharing our story is incredibly important. If we don't do it, nobody else will. And as we are on the eve of Hispanic Heritage Month, my father asked for each person in this room, to make the most of the next 30 days to celebrate our culture, our community, our successes. Use your voice in the media, use your voice in your social media feeds, talk to your neighbors, talk to your colleagues, talk to people that don't agree with you. To share a story, an achievement, a struggle, or a debate that helps move us forward. And as I will probably never have an audience this big or this influential again in my life,
Do it.
I'll be the first to start with a personal story between my father and myself. It's relatively brief, I promise, but it's representative as to how he nurtured a personal passion of mine, like he has done with so many of you, mixed it with his work at a national level, and somehow made me feel like it was my success in the end. So as a bit of a backstory, if you're going to plot out the important events in my father's career, a year that you would definitely circle is 1994. In that year, he led the task force which criticized the Smithsonian Institution for its lack of Latino representation within its ranks and within its exhibits. The result of that task force was a paper called Willful Neglect. And around that same time, 1994, I was not even a teenager at this point. I was just 12 years old. And as young kids are known to do, I was engaging in my own bit of willful neglect at the time. And Dad's work outside of the home wasn't exactly among my list of priorities. But I was a fairly good student at the encouragement of both of my parents. And history was something that I always gravitated towards. Armed with just enough knowledge to be annoying over the years, I would engage my father on the weekends with a series of did you knows. Did you know this? Did you know that? And he would always retort back with a different perspective, a different angle, and something that usually wasn't in my textbooks. A story that comes from our culture and our history that was not represented. And it taught me early on that history, while extremely important, can drastically change depending on who's telling the story. Flash forward to college, where I ended up majoring in history, and I continued to see my dad's influence in the studies that I took, the conversations that I had, and the work that I did. My senior thesis, for example, was on the Zoot Suit riots of LA in World War II. It's not very often told. I had a professor come up to me one time and ask me if this Raul guy in our textbook who was negotiating with the Coors family was any relation to me. And immediately upon my graduation, my first taste of a professional role was, you can guess where, at the Smithsonian Institution. I gained an internship at the Latino Center that was a direct result of the 1994 paper, Willful Neglect, that my dad released. And it was an incredible journey at that time, and my career branched out from that and meandered into different areas. But I always remember to tell our story and to have our story and the opportunities and share it and the opportunities that I had. So for example, I was a high school civics teacher a few years after that. And although it wasn't specifically prescribed in the curriculum, you can bet that 100 students or so each year knew Mendez v. Westminster, and the importance that it had for community. It wasn't prescribed in the curriculum, Brown versus Board was, but that case was used as the framework for Brown versus Board, and my students knew that. My students knew the name Felix Longoria and how it brought us to the national spotlight, the American GI Forum, Dr. Hector Garcia, and a young senator named Lyndon Johnson. And it's with great joy that I followed the results of the continued efforts of the Willful Neglect paper over the years. Many efforts by people on the stage here tonight to continue the effort to introduce legislation and to work towards the Museum of American Latino. And in fact, I happened to be at my parents' one day in late 2020. I hadn't been paying attention to the news. You remember kind of what was going on at that time. I'd taken a little mental break. So I wasn't as informed as I should be at the moment. But when I opened the paper that morning, I saw that Congress had made the decision to move forward with the museum. And I'll never forget that moment. The joy that I have. I'm typically a very reserved person, but I jumped out of my seat. I ran down the stairs as fast as I ever had been. I'm pushing 40 at this point. I've got some ailments that are there. I found my dad asleep in front of the TV, and I woke him up by shouting, and without context at all, "It's happening!" Gave him half a heart attack in the moment, I'm sure. But as I told him why I was so excited, the smile on his face that mirrored mine, and that moment is something that will stay with me forever. And I know so many of us in the room have a story like that, have a story that is personal to us, that brought us so much joy, that relates back to our culture and our history. And again, the ask for you all is to share that, especially over the next 30 days, to talk with your colleagues, talk with your friends, talk with your neighbors, people that disagree with you potentially, and just share our history, because it will not be told if we don't talk about it. And we have wonderful opportunities, as we learned about today, to preserve that as well. So thank you all. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming out to honor my father, and we just are so glad you're all here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, for those moving comments and inspirational comments. Thank you for